so soon. It's bad enough. I have like three or four of my own. I'm gonna stop complaining about it before it actually goes live. Yeah, it is.
So that you live stream it on YouTube, Kate, is it? And then that you can record that very easily as well, is it? Or
Yeah, it just kind of saves it as the artifact. I'm sure, Verena, you remember the virtually connecting kind of workflow that we would do the
so
Zoom
that you
meeting.
live stream it on YouTube, Kate, is it? And
Yeah.
then that you can record that very easily as well, is it? Or
Sorry, you're playing back there. I just want to get rid of it in case that freaked you out, Eamon. Sorry. Yeah, you just set up your standard Zoom meeting and then you connect your YouTube account to it. So when you just down in the more area, you go what stream to whatever service, please just stream it to YouTube Live, and that way it's kind of a fishbowl scenario that anyone that wants to join the conversation can be in the conversation, but someone else can just go watch it live without participating, just the different levels there. And then you just have the artifact after the fact. Is that right, Verena? I'm not misquoting. Virtually connecting. Does that sound like it used to be?
very nice. Sounds like low friction kind of way of sharing. Very easy to just get the recording and easily get it to people. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the kind of thinking behind it. And of course, we're trying to build up any of these artifacts. Pat, you're a co-host there, so you're okay to let people let people in. You're muted, but that's fine. I have a feeling you want to
The
be muted.
the thing I like about the recording on YouTube, Eamon, is instant transcript.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
100%, not 100% good, but scrapable.
Yeah. And that you can just leave it, like you don't have to have anything else, just stream it out once it's connected. So yeah, all good. Are you okay then, folks?
Yeah.
Okay, well, just in the interest of all of your time, I'd just like to welcome everyone. I know there's going to be people joining us in the background and people probably watching on the stream that we hopefully would have a couple there as well. You're very welcome. I'm Kate Molloy. I'm the CESI Co-Chair, joined by Pat Seaver in the background, who's doing duty, my other half, my co-chair. And we had our annual conference this weekend, so we've been very, very busy, and we have some of our members and folks that participated here this tonight as well. And even though we were busy, we did want to do something for Open Education Week, just as a nod to all the open work that folks within CESI are doing, and to cast the net a bit wider afield and to invite in some international guests. So thank you, Verena, for joining us in the middle of your busy day. What I might do to stop me for talking too long is just go around to our guests, but this is obviously very much an open forum if you want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves. Mags, go on, start.
Okay, alphabetically A, Amond, Mags Amond. I'm one of the CESI group that's here tonight. I am retired from my career of teaching second level science, and I just finished a PhD, which led me into the arena of trying to decipher what open and education was all about, and kind of that's why I'm here.
Great. I'll go next. So Trevor Boland. So I've been a big fan of SESI for a long time. So I've been very kindly allowed to speak a number of occasions over the past, I think, 10 or 15 years with SESI. So mainly I'm like a big assistive technology person. So supporting students with disabilities has been a big thing. UDL is one of my big drivers as well. So Universal Design for Learning and how that's an inclusive teaching framework. Currently I'm in DCU and I've been here for a year and a half in the disability service. And in there, I talk, unfortunately, nonstop about assistive technology to both staff and students and how it just helps everyone. And within that, I've created like a resource that I'm sharing with institutions that they can populate onto their own VLE and Moodles and Blackboards and whatever they have. And it's like an instant AT resource that they can just plonk up into their VLE and then start sharing it. That's me in a nutshell. Okay.
Trevor. Is that next? Eamon? think from right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eamon Costello. I'm Associate Professor of Digital Learning here in DCU. I'm like Trevor, we're kind of a bingo pair here. We're hitting all the different things. Oh, he's probably down in the office. No, we're not.
No, I'm at home. Yeah,
He's closer to my house than I am now. Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
So, and I used to work in distance education here in this, in something originally called USCL. And then it was, which is the Irish for open, and then it was the open education unit, and we were providing distance education to people originally by the post and then through kind of VLEs and different things like that. So, and then a couple of years ago, I moved into teacher education. So just before the call tonight, I was teaching some of our PMEs, our master students who are a computer science class for them. So that's a new subject we brought in Ireland recently, and there's teachers coming through on that. So that's a lot of fun, and I'm interested in. I did my PhD in the area of open source software in education, and I'm interested in all things open. But also, I guess I'm here to learn from CESI because I don't know. I've never been a teacher, so I don't know a lot about teaching. So I'm here to learn from you all, and delighted to be here.
Thanks, Eamon. After Costello, what do we have? We on to Hegarty.
Hey ho.
Hey ho.
So John Hegarty, second level teacher, just over 30 years. I've been on and off the CESI committee for the last 20 years or so. I started doing computers big time in my school about 25 years ago, and I was very conscious that we were buying computers faster than we were buying Microsoft licenses. And I had a plan that we would buy a certain number of licenses every year and we'd eventually get ourselves legal. But it became a never ending, it's not going to happen. So I started looking a lot more at open source and Linux, and Star Office was our big jump at the start, which was pretty painful. And then we went to Open Office when it came along, and then it forked to LibreOffice. So that kind of path. And then since then, so within my school, we don't have any specific platform. We try to cater to all. We try to use free software wherever we can, free and open source software. And I have a bit of a background in Linux as well. Within the school then drifted into teaching coding and computer science, and in the background looking after the mailing list for CESI. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
I think I'm next to my. They're going to go my alphabet. Hi, I'm Isolt. I'm a primary school teacher. I'm currently on a career break working with a charity called Teen Turn. So we work with girls from underprivileged, underrepresented areas to encourage them into considering STEM careers and STEM subjects through a range of different after-school programs, revision clubs, work placements, work experience, company visits and stuff like that. So yeah, that's me.
Is it me?
Apologies for-
I can't figure out the alphabet. Paul, isn't it? No, LMN.
Paul staying offline, is he? Sorry, my connection flipped out there a second. So maybe Verena, maybe you go ahead there. Oh, there's Paul.
Hey there. Yeah, I'm Paul Nugent. Okay, I teach science and maths and IT in a girls' school called Santa Sabina. I work with a science support organization called the Institute of Physics. That's why I missed the conference in Galway last week, so apologies for that. I'm a long-time member of CESI. The school I work in is an iPad school with one-to-one devices. We have Windows machines, we have Chrome Flex machines, so the complete gambit. That's me
Thank
for
you,
now.
Paul. Thanks, Paul. Good to see you. Verena, I think you're alphabetically not
Yes, Verena and Roberts. I'm often at the end. Yeah, that was where I liked my maiden name better. I currently work at Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops, British Columbia, but I work online from Edmonton, Alberta. And I just want to say that I just want to acknowledge that I'm on Treaty 6 territory here in Edmonton, Alberta. And it's really important to mention this because it is really cold today and it's -30 with wind chill. It's been quite warm up to this point, and usually Canadians were pretty good not complaining about the weather, but it's really cold today, so I just need some support. However, and we just got piles of snow. We had no snow, and so it's just important to remember why we need the snow and cold weather, because we're going to have drought season here in Canada, in particular in Alberta, where I live. But I work online. I am lucky to work online, but I also work as an adjunct assistant professor with University of Calgary, the Workland School of Education, and I get to teach teachers. Some of my recent courses were like issues in teaching and learning, and the exciting things that happened there were there's amazing abilities in storytelling, digital literacy skills that have surpassed my expectations. And I've taught it, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. And I didn't even know some of the things they were doing and tools they were using this year. Couldn't really catch up to them. Didn't admit that in the moment. I've also worked with a group called Callisto, which it sounds like you might be interested in. And I have a humanities background. And so I joined Callisto because I wanted to figure out why we should learn coding. Like, why was coding so important for students, specifically K-12 students? That's what we call them here in Canada. And what I did learn was how to integrate some of the computational thinking, machine learning, and coding into different lesson plans. And so if you look up callisto.ca, it's a nonprofit group here based out of Alberta, and they have a whole bunch of resources. They use Jupyter notebooks, which I don't like at all, and don't understand. Well, actually I do understand why they're doing it, because that's how they got the grant funding. But it's just a really good example of how they don't listen, and that nobody's using Jupyter notebooks in our schools. So how can we integrate that well? So we have to teach all the teachers and students how to use Jupyter notebooks. Lots of you will know what I'm talking about when you go into it. I did my doctorate research in open educational practices in high school. I looked at how do students perceive the learning opportunities afforded to them when a teacher decides to use open educational practices, and what they think. And the coolest thing was they all became little researchers with me. So that was really neat. But I also learned that we come out of the cloud. When the students in particular really got into how to think about open, they needed to come back to community and family. So we ended up getting into a lot of place-based practice and land-based practice and Indigenous practice that I didn't anticipate. So I call it going from the clouds to the land. Because I was all in digital. Like, I worked at a school district as the lead, specialist in educational technology, but I ended up back on the land. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning with you today, but I think that's a bit of why Kate and Mags pulled me in, because of all the different ways in which I've been learning about open learning. Thank you.
I actually think, based on what you said, Verena, I was probably going to ask some basic questions of people, but I feel like we should just let the conversation flow, perhaps based on that, because your background, I think everyone's background in the chat, obviously including our invited panelists, is probably so similar in terms of different ways and means in which we approach open based on the various different hats and different roles, whether we're acting in our student capacity and teacher educator capacity and day job capacity, or even in just problem solving capacity, as others have said, about implementing just things that work and learning from each other. I might actually open the floor to my panelists to say, is there any question you want to ask each other based on that? Because I was just trying to Notes.
Pat Seaver's not getting away.
Oh, sugar. Sorry, illustrious co-chair Pat Seaver. That is clearly next in the alphabet. Sorry. I know the alphabet.
My name is Pat Seaver. I'm a long-term victim of alphabetical discrimination, along with Verena.
You know the alphabet.
It's something we both have in common. I also, as in common with Mags, John, and Paul, have been a long-time member of CESI. I've been involved in various CPD programs delivering CPD over the years. I teach in a community school not a million miles away from Paul Nugent, teaching mainly science subjects and some ICT. I'm passionate about the effective use of ICT to leverage effective education. And at one stage in my school, we did have our network was entirely open source. The network was run on NetBSD, and we were using Opera and OpenOffice. However, I went away in secondment for 5 years, and when I came back to let's say a rather large multinational corporation wasteland.
Lockdown.
Complete lockdown. So I'm slowly trying to change things a little bit within the school, but it's not easy.
Well, I think apologies. I do know the alphabet, Pat. I swear it's been a long week. As everyone in CESI can confirm and left you behind there. But actually, maybe that's the more nuanced point for our first question to throw around to our panelists is that's the idea of slowly chipping away at our practice or improving practice into the open. Has anyone come to open education that way, or is helping advise others on coming to more open practices and open software and open technologies that way? I know I certainly have, but this isn't my time to talk. This is for you.
If I jump in there, I think it's the nature of education. It's our nature to share stuff. Once we know something, we like to tell people about it. And we hope that they will tell others. So it's a complete probably opposite of some of the stuff that might be going on within the software industry, where things are kind of closed up a little bit. So what was the book, The Cathedral and the Bazaar, something like that, about open source software being a model. Now, it actually wasn't open versus closed. It was just methods of open source software. I was quite influenced by that. I was influenced by Linux in general, and the idea that, if you have something and it didn't cost you anything, it doesn't cost you anything to share it. And if other people are sharing with you, then, we're all benefiting from that. That's kind of where I was coming from.
Yeah, I'm going to follow John in because when I started to read around, when I was looking at TeachMeet and these seemingly self-forming open professional development things. No, at the time I wasn't seeing them as open, but the cathedral and the bazaar and the tower and the square, the spider and the starfish, and then your man Poe's the hive. We are a hive. That's what we are. They all of them espousing open source, lack of hierarchy. All of them are definitely in TeachMeet, and particularly I'm seeing them in our CESI TPN more and more, but we're unconscious of it. We're not, it's like an unconscious way of moving because we're not academics. So we don't use the terminology or the language, but we're actually walking the walk. And I'm going to say it in front of everybody, John really moved us into that by taking us into a very open forum of discussion, about 2,000 of us. It's like a staff room of 2,000 people. And when we flipped our model of membership and community to that open forum, like everything really, really changed. That's around the time you and I would have joined in, Trevor, I think.
Oh yeah. No.
Okay, so that just on that. So that was around 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And we were modeling on the Irish Linux users group, ILUG. And the way you were a member of ILUG was if you were on the membership list or the mailing list, you were a member. So there was no fees, there was no formal filling in the form or anything. It's just basically, if you're on that, you're in. and it was the administrative overhead of that is zero or very, very low compared to what we used to do, where we had memberships and we had school memberships and we had, simplified things a lot. I got a lot more people on board.
I was going to say, Kate, in my experience, in my primary, secondary teacher experience, we have no money. So that's how open becomes an option. I don't know about you. So that's the number one reason they come to me. But then that brings up the ethics of it. And, what are we giving away by using some of these softwares or products or whatever? So then that's how open source products become an option. But then when we start talking about open source projects or options, like Moodle, for example, we've gone to Google Classroom because they found it too complicated. And so then the teachers didn't, it isn't always easy. Like, you do have to spend some time getting to know it. Google Classroom is easier. So that was a problem too. But then they end up like coming back around when like from a professional learning point of view, it's when they feel that aloneness. And especially, I mean, it happened before COVID and during COVID. I know that teachers these days I wouldn't want to be a teacher anymore because it's so difficult. So it's for those teachers who are looking for their tribe. And I agree with you that, Mags, it's not always we don't use the right words necessarily in higher education. So connected learning was the big one for K-12. And so when we think of the opportunities to connect with those who are like-minded, and it's not only the fellow teachers, it's the students who are out there using the writing, software and groups and communities. And so that's where they're learning how to write and share their writing, or the open source coding communities or the gaming communities. I think those are what I see more in the K-12 context. How do we provide those opportunities for our students to learn in informal and formal learning spaces in ways that we might not necessarily be doing, using our current curriculum and context? Yeah.
There are definitely barriers in curriculum and context. I think we know similar barriers here. And Eamon, I'm just kind of curious about your computer science students or in that teacher educator context. Are you finding that they would move slowly towards open in the same kind of ways, or that are they bringing ideas to the table to you?
A small group, not on 3% battery. They're a small group. They're not particularly, open kind of lunatics like we all are, but they're tinkerers and they're crafters. They all have that, they have that, which is a part of a kind of an open kind of, wanting to share that what John was saying about that, I'm very willing, really interested in just intrinsic, nature of how the world works and sharing that with people and the fun of making stuff. I think that's really, that's coming through with them. But the open thing is, there's many opens, but I thought it was interesting what Pat was saying is about the big tech in schools. And we've just seen that in the pandemic, like this platformization of education that we've never seen before at second level, and the amount of technology that's coming into schools. And ironically, we're the ones that know most about it, and we're the most worried. It's so weird. And that's a kind of contrast to what you were saying, Kate, about, small practices, because on the one hand, I do believe in the small practices and doing just little things. It's very important to always feel you can make a difference and you have hope. But then sometimes you're like, right, I'm in a giant system.
Yeah.
If we should be getting together and changing the system somehow. So there's tensions.
Yeah. There's definitely tensions, and even to maybe talk about one small just instance in my own practice, when you're coming from kind of a educational technologist angle in a large university, when those mammoth systems are in place, what I was doing was almost on the opposite end of the spectrum, was trying to model some open source Yeah, my connection died. Sorry.
Yeah.
Move on to each other. Go ahead, whoever was talking. Sorry.
No, I was just wondering, is your sound coming? Your sound is still coming in, so we can still hear you.
Oh, okay. No, it's just my connection blipped, so it made me think I was gone. No, I was my angle coming out of the, obviously for CESI folks would know, but I came out of the classroom. I was a teacher for 10 years before moving into open education, and went from having nothing at my disposal to having too much technology, far too much at my disposal, and working to support staff. I had to do almost the opposite. They're trying to buy paid versions of open source tools to model the use of tools like, let's say, Hypothesis or H5P or something within a closed VLE, just to highlight to folks that there are tools out there that actually, once you try them a couple of times, well, you can actually edit H5P interactive content using an open source tool called Lumi, and you can just publish it as HTML or SCORM, or you can try Hypothesis in Blackboard or Canvas or whatever we're using, but actually you can just go use it on the open web. So it was the kind of reverse angle, but that seemed a bit more, even more Sisyphean in nature, as trying to tear down a system that was much larger than myself, but just trying to model in a very small, minute way. So I took the small victories. When you turn around and say, okay, we introduced something on a pilot basis, but we have maybe 270 staff authors out of like 2,500 staff, you take that as a win, and you move on from it, because at that scale, anyone that's working in those sectors, regardless if you're using Moodle or something that's even open source, that there's so many entanglements of kind of paid tools, it's even bigger than the two monopolies that the two big companies have on the second level classrooms. Stranglehold is there.
Yeah.
Mags, what do you mean by you've moved from tribe to community?
Yeah, and just as terminology, that's all. Just
you mean the same thing then?
Yeah. Those who are actually living in tribes prefer us not to use it. So I've moved to, once you know a thing, you have to go with it. So it would have been Catherine Cronin who alerted it to me first. Then I read around it. I said, yeah, I'm a community. I would have always said find my tribe, always. And now I've just, it's like not to curse anymore or something like that. I'm just getting the habit of, I've moved, and also having studied the network and community thing so much. Definitely we're a community taking care of our little domain. We're not a hive, because one of us would have to be the queen bee.
It is a struggle to know what to call CESI at this point.
Okay, so it's wording. I'm totally
saying nothing.
Yeah, we'll just be together as soulmates around a campfire, learning with each other. But this week with Open Ed Week, it came up, and I'll try to use the right words, but some of the sadness people have felt because of the lack of ability to network and connect using things like Twitter that we did as teachers in the past, and trying to explain, I can't explain Twitter and the great Twitter, I would say, the Twitter that was, and how that's impacting them as open learners and practitioners now. I know that I was dependent upon it with my teachers, because that's how our ideas were shared. That's how if we were going to meet up in Canada, we'd meet up at the coffee shop and not necessarily the bar, but I'd like to have met at the bar. But it was all through the tweets, right? And the Twitter hashtags. And so I was wondering what people are doing now to generate those communities now with teachers and others.
Can I jump in and show you something just on that very point? I fired something out. About the Twitter that was, and the tribe at the time, and the way things worked. And I have to see, can I get this done right? Yeah, this one. The I think is that in there? Yeah, this.
Yep.
Okay, so the I put it in because I didn't find this until about 2 years ago, but it's from 2017. And definitely a lot of open communities used Twitter really, really well. And this is a Teach Meet in 2017. I had no idea it existed until some of you know Martin Hoxie, and this is his Tags Explorer software. Is such a beautiful thing. And John Johnson did this. And in the middle, I'll just go down to the next slide. Oh, sorry, the first tweet in this bundle is 25th of August 2017, and it's Ian Stewart in the middle and saying, anyone want to teach meet at the Scottish Learning Festival? And then this is basically the organization of that teach meet for the Scottish Learning Festival. I see Tony Ryland from Ireland is in there, I'm in there, and it just all hung together on those, what do they call it, the strength of weak ties in Twitter. And I'm worried. I'm really, really worried, Verena, about, and this question you asked is so good. I'm worried about what are we mean Teach Meet and CESI, what are we going to use now that we're all become a diaspora?
Yeah, I used to say Twitter was like my, I used to teach for context here in a one teacher school. So obviously I had no other staff members to get stuff off, and I would teach the kids for like 8 years in a row. So you can't make the same Valentine's Day cards every year or the same St. Patrick's Day art, or you just, so I used to use Twitter to literally magpie ideas of everybody else. It was my staff room. It literally was my staff room. So yeah, I kind of go now that it's just not what it was. It's definitely gone now. It's like, yeah, I'd be scared to step back into my classroom. I don't know what I'd use. I'd be very lonely.
Yeah.
What did Bianca say? It was like a cross between the pub and the staff room.
Although I do see people moving to LinkedIn, but I'm not sure if that's going to be a permanent move. I think people are trying to make it work. So I don't know if one of the new kind of Twitters is going to take over. Don't know.
See, LinkedIn is not open.
Yeah, that's the thing. I know, and I've tried to get into it and it hasn't really worked. So I don't know. I'm hoping some kind of new nice alternative for Twitter kind of occurs, and that it's going to attract the education community and we'll be able to grow again. But yeah, no, I empathize. I feel a bit of a loss with Twitter gone, because I used it heavily for the UDL community, especially with my American counterparts. I think they were really active on it. So yeah, see what
I find LinkedIn like a recruitment agency, and I find Instagram is becoming one of those places where you're finding teachers are selling stuff and becoming influencers, and that's totally a dangerous direction to go in. But yeah, John, I haven't ventured over to Mastodon at all yet, but maybe I might need to check it out.
Yeah.
Mastodon is working, I think, for a few of us, but it's just, as John said, it's not the numbers. It obviously sticks to the ethos and kind of usability, but the numbers just, I think, have fragmented maybe between that and, I'm guessing, Blue Sky. But on the LinkedIn, we're lamenting the loss of Twitter and what it's meant to all of us in various different ways. I mean, I don't know if you have battery, but you've been testing out LinkedIn, not necessarily open, but a way of attempting to share. He's gone and he's back again, right? He seems to be doing it pretty well, so it'd be low of
There
not
he
to
is.
ask him.
Here's the other Eamon.
Oh, I must be coming on his phone, I'd say, is he? Yeah. Oh.
Is he?
Or he just cloned.
Oh, hang on a minute now. This is artificial intelligence, Eamon.
Oh God.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm over on LinkedIn, and I alternate on LinkedIn. I have a very influential strategy. I alternate between saying very serious things about works and then just ranting about Gaza, the situation in Gaza, and that's how I'm losing friends and influencing people and pissing off my employers, my follower count, and everything. So I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I remember I was in New Zealand and there was a mini earthquake. It wasn't the big one like in Christchurch, and I'd written about it on Twitter because you talk about everything there, really. Well, I did not show my breakfast, but I did talk about the earthquake. And I got a note from my school district saying, careful, you shouldn't tell people where you are because you're supposed to be working in a face-to-face environment and you're an online teacher and you're going to get everybody upset if they know that you're in New Zealand work. And I was like, whoa, got that full reprimand.
Yeah. I think there's the wider thing about Twitter is that it was a kind of, we had this utopian dream that social media was going to be really good and connective, and there's so much downsides to it, and there's so many problems with it. That's the hard thing to kind of reckon with now, I guess.
And so as I keep saying to people, I'm clinging there just because I want at least to maintain contact, even if I'm not using it actively. But the constant targeted ads I'm getting that I've reported every day for gripped media of all things are really starting to become disconcerting, despite the fact that I report them every time I see them. But yeah, the utopian vision is all but washed away at this stage, unfortunately. But I suppose it begs a question for these communities and these various networks is really it's quite difficult to know, even for us. Within our list is one thing, but kind of wider afield when we have something like this, or even our conference is where to share things, that where are we finding people and where are they looking? That everyone's situation is so different. And I'm glad you're here, Isolde, to highlight, just how vital those connections are, for some people, that some of us are
It's
maybe
also
spoiled for choice.
something Isolde and Verena and Eamon touched on there is being a teacher in the open, that this sense that your employer or your employer sense that they own you. I mean, I do know others who got little messages like to say, hello, you can't be talking about that on Twitter. And, who owns the educator in an open system as well? And I say owns on purpose because there is sometimes a feeling that the closed employment system, education system, owns the entire life of their employees.
When I'm teaching open education to my students, I start out with a slide and I just say, who owns this slide? And they go, Google or, blah, 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 or YouTube or whatever. And then I bring up the part of the DCU thing that talks about intellectual property of people who work here, And it's actually interesting because in my teaching, it's different than in research and scholarship where I have retain more rights. And then we look up who owns the students' intellectual property in a university and so on. And then I just do that with everything, like who owns YouTube, who owns CapCut, every technology we're using. Just it's kind of interesting thing to reflect on for sure.
I'm
so surprised.
Oh, go on, Eamon.
Sorry, Brian. I'm so surprised how few students know who owns YouTube. Maybe that's just me showing my age or whatever. They seem to know more that Instagram, there's more awareness that that's owned by Meta, but not that Google or Alphabet even owns YouTube. They don't seem to know that at all.
I bet yesterday's outage just helped them figure it out, though.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that in Twitter, I always felt like there was a bit of a filter bubble. I mean, I love that everyone was so positive. I had positive and some terrible experiences, but in general, I had positive experiences. In Instagram, I agree with you, because I was following someone and then they were doing great, mindful, like wonderful day type things each day. I'm like, oh, great, I'll follow them. And then this other person came in who was really anti-Canada and against politicians. And I was like, whoa, how did this person get in my feed from my filter bubble that I have really made very positive and happy? My algorithm should be smiling and all little leprechauns in my world. And I was like trying to figure it out. And it was because he followed this other person. So the good thing about Instagram is you can go back and figure out who it is that you follow, that person comes into your feed in ways that I couldn't necessarily see it in Twitter, which I thought was interesting. So that was my one learning of why I should use Instagram with teachers or students, is because you can track it back and you can find out some pretty nasty things about people based on who they follow and what their like way too much information I've learned. So that much more than Twitter. Like, yeah. So that's just another thing to be warned of with these new social media. And LinkedIn, same thing, Eamon. Like, I can't, it's very serious. I'm supposed to be serious there. I can't joke around. It's very
Come
hard.
on in. I'm bringing it down. I'm bringing it down. Come on over. I'm telling you.
We need our own little group to make it like not as serious. Oh my gosh.
You two could form the Continuity LinkedIn splinter group.
Yeah, the leprechaun group. Like, just call it that. It's only for fun and looking for gold. It's mischief. Mischief.
You push something out. Oh, yeah.
LinkedIn group.
On the blinkers on. Oh, yeah. Or Eamon's at least trying to change the tone of LinkedIn, which I appreciate, because I'm circling the same way back and forth between different platforms. Perhaps I didn't realize, Verena, until you said it, that I'm probably looking for that filter bubble, and I just wasn't conscious of exactly what I was looking for on the different platforms. But you are correct, and maybe it's a digital skills thing, and maybe it's something for our own reflections, but also for students, is that digging into who we're following and how that starts to change the feeds and the algorithms. I actually do the exact same thing on Instagram. Like, I find someone new and I go digging through who they're following and what kind of trash things might be there. And it's always worth, just not a random follow, but a little bit of digging. But perhaps we're all a bit too quick to click LinkedIn. Yeah, or as my mom likes it, who doesn't know what it is, keeps calling it LinkedIn, and it sounds kind of cute. So I let her off. She obviously has no idea what it is. So it's fine. But do we have someone new join us? Mags, was there one?
Michael?
Michael.
You wanna?
Yeah, hi.
Where are you coming from?
I'm in Bronx Community College in New York City.
My birthplace, Michael.
What?
My birthplace, the Bronx.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm an OER librarian here. It's interesting, when I first came in, everybody was talking about like who owns this and who owns that. I just had somebody make a OER syllabus where he made all the links and everything to free resources, not necessarily OER resources, but on the internet and everything. He's getting a stipend for making the course, etc. And we were gonna upload it to our repository, but then it hit me. Who owns the first half of the syllabus, which is the standard department issued syllabus? He owns the second half, right? Because he made all the links and decided what the readings are and everything. And before I slap a Creative Commons license on it and give him the copyright, yeah, that was my question. I already did it to 2 other people without thinking about it, I asked everybody. They said he probably owns the second half. And then the first half is owned by someone else, but then that becomes not clear. It was a department effort, no? I don't even know whoever made it. They don't know how long they've been using it. It says who was the last one to update it. They claim it's not work product. They claim faculty own what they make at the City University of New York. So that's interesting. I'm going to have them take off the first half and just put the second half, and whatever anyone has to say over here would be interesting to hear.
Well, Michael, Ireland is a small country, so we all work to the same syllabus made by something called the National, John, help me out here, the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. So if it's national, I believe we all own it. It was made on our behalf. That's my defense. And I'll come and defend you on that.
In Ireland, there's one university system for the whole country?
No, we have several universities, but there's one national syllabus from kindergarten to
K-12.
what you would call K-12. So we're very small. We only have our population 6 million, I think. So there are tiny bits of the United States that are bigger than our whole country. So
Yeah,
we all march to the same tune. If you look
Yeah.
at the screen, John in the center, he's in the center of my screen. John, regular classroom teacher, but he became a member of the syllabus writing group for computer science for the entire country because of his expertise. So it would be my belief we all own our syllabus, but
That's
you've
fascinating.
now sparked something we need to find out.
That's fascinating. You know that in the United States, the Department of Education is a relatively new thing. Now, when I say new, I mean maybe 50 years old, but there was no Department of Education when they wrote the Constitution. Our good old states business said that every state has the right to make their own constitution. God forbid the evil federal government should tell anybody what to do. And it was, I guess, about, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago that they made a federal department, and they dole out a lot of money, but there's no one
Yeah.
syllabus. I would assume that there's one national test for high school graduation. Am I correct?
Yeah, one national
All
test.
right. Yeah. I mean, I'm Jewish. I know that in Israel they have a national test. In New York State, we have state-to-state tests. In some state, we have the regions in New York State. But some, what do you call it? Some states don't have tests. Some states, wow, yeah, it's really centralized. Interesting.
You have some scary states doing some scary things too.
Yeah.
Curriculum.
So you were born in the Bronx and ended up in Ireland?
I was. That's a long story. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, I don't want to take up time. But
No, but it's the intellectual property is actually, it's an interesting question because I'm going to say I moved universities last spring, so I'm still getting to know my new university's policies. But maybe, Eamon, I don't know, where does DCU stand with the intellectual property? Is yours for that? I assume.
Yeah, it's interesting. If it's creative or scholarly works, right? Then I nearly know the wording, in accordance with long-standing tradition, it says, that remains with me. So the bizarre thing is, I'm saying to my students, if I'm just creating this slide for you, in this class, DCU owns it, right? But if I'm creating this for a book or for some kind of work of art or some kind of piece of research or something, I own it. Now, I also grant a non-exclusive right to the university to use my creative and scholarly works. So the thinking behind it seems to be that, like, if I'm teaching a class, if someone else inherits my slides, God forbid, then the university says, well, if Eamon drops dead, someone else can teach his class tomorrow, we take his slides. But if I'm doing research, I write a book that's kind of more something. It's kind of like if you're a researcher or an academic or something, you're supposed to have a kind of fidelity to your discipline that goes beyond your kind of institution, if you like, that kind of academic freedom part. But why the university needs to exert any intellectual property rights over my content is kind of a big question, because most people's slides aren't worth anything. That's the problem with sharing. People think their stuff is worth loads of money, and it's not. And also, if I had a license, if my slides were openly licensed, the university could still benefit from them. They could still reuse them with someone else. So, but I think the bigger problem in Ireland that we have, and I'm not an expert in this at all, is the bigger problem I see is that what the folks in North America seem to have much better than us is this idea of fair use. And we don't really have that here. We have something called fair dealing from common law, and it's really restrictive. The Irish, you basically can't use anything from a book or TV or any. It's highly restrictive. Anything you can use in Ireland to teach, and there's much more latitude for this as I understand it, in North America. And that would make, I think some of the times we're kind of thinking we could make everything Creative Commons, but sometimes the law is a huge blocker. And if we had some kind of change in the national level in the law, it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think.
And what about Creative Commons then? Because a few times I've marked my work as Creative Commons when I want to share it openly. So does that override or just complement what you're saying, Eamon? I'm not entirely sure now.
I am not a lawyer, so anything I say
Okay,
is going to
yeah.
constitute legal advice, Trevor, okay? Keep
To
doing
be
what you're
honest,
doing,
like
that's all I'm saying. Keep doing what you're doing, right? Follow me on LinkedIn to find out more.
I assume you can relinquish any of your rights you want through Creative
Yes.
Commons licensing, right? He's talking about using someone else's work by saying, well, I have the right to do that because of fair use. And what you're telling me is that we have a lot more fair use rights in the United States than others. I'm taking a course in copyright, and I'm learning that there are special exemptions from copyright law in America for libraries when it comes to interlibrary loan.
America, yeah, it seems to be just a very different just context, and based on my accent, I feel like I should know both. But ironically, I know I've talked to others about it here. I'm kind of writing a course right now for people like me, for learning designers, and some of the kind of the support I would be hoping to offer would be somewhere around licensing and sharing and OEP kind of more generally. But when I've been in this position now, especially with colleagues from the States, I've had to say the same thing as you, Eamon. I am not a lawyer. Just please don't quote me on any of this, because I'm not a copyright law expert, because it actually is, it's so, the two contexts are so wildly different that I've had American colleagues kind of come in, well, I can use it, it's fair use. And Christ, no, you can't. No, you can't do any of the things that you would in the US. But go ahead.
Can I throw the elephant into the room and say ChatGPT is going to throw all of this? It's going to really, really put a spanner in all of the works of all attributive licensing.
We have court cases right now in the United States about ChatGPT, aside from the fact that people are suing ChatGPT for training off their data. The question becomes, if I put a prompt into ChatGPT and I hit the enter key and ChatGPT generates an essay, who owns that essay? Many years ago, there was a very cute case of a guy who set up the tripod in the wild, and you're all familiar. It's very funny. And a cute chimpanzee or something ran up to it and took a selfie. And the question was, who owned the selfie? He argued he did because he set up the tripod, but the pictures on Wikipedia, they argued that no one owned it since he hadn't taken the actual picture, and the monkey doesn't have standing. And in the end, that's what the law is, that you can't give rights to the monkey, so the monkey's the creator. And the question is, when you hit enter, is ChatGPT the creator? Yeah.
In Ireland, are you allowed to use ChatGPT as a teacher due to the fact that the servers are in the US? Because I know that in British Columbia and Canada, for example, we're not allowed to use ChatGPT for the rule that it's the server rule. It's not, which actually makes it really easy, because then I'm like, nope, even though what are the rules for like data collection and use? Yeah.
I don't think we haven't hit the rules part of it yet, Verena.
Well, I mean, ethically, like, I don't, but what are the policies that guide it? Like I'm just wondering. Okay.
We're working on we work at the moment. I think we're kind of working on a very Irish thing, because the kind of the Asher, it'll be grand thing at the moment, but there is a lot of concern, and it will, we will, I'd say soon there'll be something about it.
Well, they did ban it in Italy for a while under GDPR, and somehow they got it back. So they must have made some changes to get that back. It's probably all bloody hosted in Ireland anyway, but all on our servers here probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Yeah, because you would easily make that case about the GDPR aspect, like for those of us that have to do procurement, like
Yes.
you know, how many things are ruled out completely due to
Yeah.
where the servers are,
I
or
mean,
what
it's so
the ethics are.
You
yeah.
can't use something if the server is not in your country to generate educational content.
No, I can't use it. Technically, that doesn't mean, Michael, I won't use
Yeah,
it.
I understand.
I
I had never heard of it. I
I'm
had
just
never heard in
saying, yeah,
America that
legally.
Have you seen the octopus thing on Verena? Have you seen the octopus thing on Netflix? The octopus conspiracy, no?
No.
The blue octopus, the purple one? Is that the
I
one?
can't remember what it's called. The NSA has been basically has been stealing all the Canada's data anyway. They've all these spying programs.
Right. Okay.
So it's all good. They've
So
ruined everything
Doesn't
already.
matter. Yeah,
Does
I don't. Well, that's the point with artificial intelligence. I don't even know why I'm trying to follow these archaic policies and rules and try to. But when you're in a position of leadership and you're talking to teachers and trying to explain it, it becomes super difficult because you're like, well, I would really like you to go do this, but understand that you could be, you know, going against a lot of rules and you could get yourself in trouble. And I don't want to do that in a leadership.
Yeah, because that's a question, Verena. If they say you can't use any materials that you have generated with ChatGPT, how are they going to know? The whole point is that there are no markers in there yet.
I know.
So that they'll be turning
Given the fact we have cloud storage, how can you even determine where the data is?
I don't know, which is what I argued when I heard that I'm not allowed to use. Where are they? I don't know where this server. And Eamon's not telling me there was like monkeys and octopus. I don't know.
Can your students use OpenStax or all those?
No, they can't use anything that is in British Columbia in particular has strict rules. They can't use anything that has a server outside of British Columbia.
So you use BC Commons or BC Campus for everything? I don't know much about. I know this BC Campus makes OERs.
Or we'd have to like for Moodle servers and things like that. If we were we literally all districts have to have their own Moodle servers that they're using within their we couldn't use cloud-based companies, for example. That kind of thing.
That's really interesting, Bryn. That's actually, it sounds kind of archaic or whatever, but it's actually very nice because it creates these local kind of pockets of business.
It's like local grown, right? It's like local grown farming.
Yeah, it is. It's decentralized. It's it's like the original web because everything's getting more and more concentrated into one or two providers all the time. So that's quite a nice thing that has to happen. It's interesting.
If we're trying
to follow the rules. Yeah, if you follow them. Yeah.
Throw a second spanner in the works and just tell John Hegarty then we'll try to locally host the massive CESI list and see what happens. Not rely on Google.
Yeah, I think we might go back then to the forum that we had way back when.
And John is the closest thing we have to you, Michael, here. We don't have in our second level system and high school systems, we don't have librarian systems like you do. We don't have the teacher librarian system. We're I'm particularly very, very jealous. So John, as curator of our professional network list, is probably the closest we have to a librarian, that the data minder of what the teachers talk about between themselves.
Yeah, I'm actually in college. Everybody here is in high school?
Well, your community college?
I'm at community college, yeah.
Trevor, would you be the nearest?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm in a university kind of like Eamon, so I suppose community college, would that be like further education here maybe?
Yeah, in America they have they call the librarians in elementary and high school library and media specialists.
We don't have none of those.
We're lucky we have them at third level, Michael. We'll put it that
Michael,
way.
we don't even have a library in a lot of schools.
Yeah,
well, I think in New York City they don't have the librarians in the high schools and elementary schools that they're required by law. There's like much less than they're required. But you might have one librarian for like 3 schools and they go around and everything. I was gonna share something interesting. I know, I'm sure everyone knows OpenStax. Now I'm finding out you might not be able to use it if it's a different country. Yesterday I see they started having a chatbot in their macroeconomics. Yeah, I just found out yesterday in their macroeconomics textbook, they have a chatbot. You can ask it macroeconomics questions and it answers it. I was fascinated. So
I think in our country we are so tied in, Michael, to proprietary commercial textbooks that some people might swoon or faint at the sight of OpenStax.
but you're all open educators, right?
By passionate personal practice, all of us, but in a system that really doesn't it's not an open. Sorry, I can only speak for Ireland. Verena's in Canada.
Yeah,
but
for all intents and purposes, we're a guerrilla group.
I thought America was the land of capitalism. Yeah.
Michael, America is our offspring.
No, we have federal and state what do you call it? Funding for creation of open resources.
Yeah, I like OpenStax.
Millions of dollars.
In fact, Michael, when I teach academic staff and I teach my own colleagues, and I always use the CUNY and SUNY slide as my utopian vision of what it would be like to get millions to dedicate to OER rather than 1 3-hour workshop and a 10 ACTS module. It's great. I mean, it's a different, I think, a different planet that we're functioning on in terms of open, but it's wonderful to see the kind of that spectrum, I think, in the room too, and just the different ways in which we're all attempting and chipping away at openness in various contexts.
You know, I was thinking, Kate, so my son is in grade 12, so last year, I guess, going to university next year, we'll just say. And he did not do well in his math class, we'll just say. So being the ever diligent open educator that I am, I found some open videos for math to help him out, right, as he went along. And then I noticed the difference between that blended approach in our classrooms of using these online videos and not. And so now I'm seeing this rise of open homework systems, especially in higher education. So the understanding, because there's such a failure rate in the first and second year, and not just because we let everybody in and we want all their money, but because like they really are difficult when you go in. Trevor, I've heard you speak about supporting all our students. Assistive technology, like all, doesn't matter, everyone. So these open homework systems are, I work with, I'm on the advisory board for LibreText actually, and their system is called Adapt. And the whole focus is to try to do practice questions. And it makes me laugh because in K-12 primary and secondary, we know they have to practice. And how do we get them to practice, right? But there's this fight in higher education saying, oh, they should just do the work. Like, you know, there's no expectation that it's just all on them, right? So I was wondering in Ireland how you're accessing or using, especially in STEM courses, in particular, I don't know, OER to better support your students when you get stuck in those upper grades and those as they transition. I don't know. Does anyone have any insight on what's going on? And no, Mags, I'm like, you're the gorillas. You're supposed to give me some examples.
I'm sure our teachers do have examples, Verena.
You'll find on a local basis, I found in schools that certain teachers will go above
certain teachers still, yeah.
But it's certainly nothing that is being supported or even encouraged on an organizational level, let alone on a local or national level.
I was going to say, or even acknowledged, Pat, in some cases.
Yeah, even acknowledged.
Yeah. Is there anything in CS, John, or I suppose the networks, really?
This an open textbook? So I got lost.
No, you're all right. No,
Well,
and
yeah, just in terms of open textbooks and open sources, is there anything in particular? LCCS, yes.
There's a great book that I use. It's getting a little bit old, but it's called Teaching Tech Together by Greg Wilson, and it's fantastic. It's Creative Commons. It's a commercial book as well. I don't know how he managed to swing the licensing, and it's got loads of stuff on teaching computing and kind of different. It's got bits of learning theory, bits of kind of cognitive theory, teaching strategies, but also loads of practical stuff on this is how you do X and Y, Z with Python or so on. So that's it. I'm loving that book at the moment. And the general kind of resources, I'm new to the computer science at second level, but there's great resources out there. But it does really annoy me that the books, particularly where we have a monopoly at our post-primary level, that we can't, that the government couldn't make those just open source and get some kind of literacy going among people, because they're paying, like, and it's not like they're making any money. It's not like the people don't care. Like, Keith Quill or Brett Becker, they're not going to care that their book is open source. They'd be happy. It's getting more citations, it's getting more people. So, and it might create more kind of knowledge, because we had this thing called National Learning Repository in Ireland, a repository thing, and people sort of think it was a bit of a failure or whatever, but it wasn't really, because it died. But the Creative Commons as a kind of currency and as a tool that people can use to talk about intellectual property is just very well known now in Ireland. Certainly at third level, you can't have any kind of project without making sure all your resources are going to be output as openly licensed. I'm going to stop ranting because I got to go in a second.
Yeah, I think we need to probably all to go. But there have been projects, Verena, like I was involved with biology teachers, and I would say I've never seen such a group for sharing. As part of teacher education system from our Department of Education, all biology teachers in the country were asked to contribute, and basically they built up a bank of resources which covered the entire curriculum. Now, it was mostly PowerPoint files to each part of the system, but I don't even know where to access that anymore. It wasn't, you had to go through a system of logging on and they were just kind of, there's a fear of leaving things online available on a shelf for people. And what the kids are doing, they're going to YouTube. They're finding it all there.
Yeah. Really
I'll send them to OpenStax now, Michael. I'd forgotten about that.
Well, you
And
folks,
CK12. CK12 is the other one for K12. Yeah. Except all the math is wrong because it's all in Imperial. But anyway.
Yeah, they have
well,
AP
you folks are.
textbooks.
Oh, go ahead. I was just saying I'm putting together all these resources while you folks have been busy talking. So.
Okay, Eamon says, see you on LinkedIn. Love it. Yep.
That's what we're calling it, folks. The guerrilla conversation here. No, listen, I'm conscious we went over time, but I think everyone was enjoying the conversation, and that's why we went with something open, truly open in terms of no real direction to the conversation, because we wanted to get whatever perspectives were in the room and maybe use it as a basis for us planning a little bit about our.
Oh, I think we lost
Kate,
her.
Kate dropped again. Is anyone interested if we were to convene again, just from our conversation tonight? I would love a real clarity, 20 minutes on Creative Commons licensing. I've taught myself the ins and outs of it 6 times. I still get lost with the various layers. I'd love us to invite someone in who would be really good on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of Rebecca. I'm thinking of Rebecca, the Wikimedia curator in Ireland, someone like that, just literally to bring us up to speed.
Yeah, I know from an Irish perspective, the National Forum are the people who have heard kind of give the best description of that. So maybe
our own Catherine Cronin would probably.
is that? Oh, okay.
would be
Yeah,
a good person as well. You know, she's as clear as a bell. On we need someone who it's their daily practice. They're absolutely sure that I need to do CC and a 4 and an ND,
yeah.
whatever. I'd love to get something
That's
And,
why.
something
and the
like
Creative
that.
Commons is international, isn't it?
Creative Commons is
Yeah.
international, and I am hoping against all hope that it kind of something like that moves into the AI, some form of in the AI attribution stage. I'm staying away from AI until it does. So, did you catch the beginning of that, Kate?
I missed some of it, but
And if we
I was just
reconvene, that's something I'd love on the agenda. Is a little bit of learning and then a load of chat.
yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, like, I was just fishing out the link there that, like Trevor said, the National Forum, there's an OER and OEP guide that was Catherine Cronin's
Yeah.
project before she
She might
finished.
talk us. She might talk us through her greatest hits.
She might talk us because I was going to say I could help in an informal way, but that's really because everything I know came from Catherine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
I
She's
could
the
share
source.
what I know.
yeah.
Thank you, Michael. That would be
Yeah.
good. That
I
would
think
be, and Michael, you have to meet Catherine because she's another Bronx girl.
yeah.
In Ireland,
Absolutely.
Yes, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
I actually live in Brooklyn, but
Oh, sorry.
I take an hour and a half train every day. One of the things I've learned is the importance of making sure that your Creative Commons licensed images, for example, are compatible.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's what takes a long time. Like I know Eamon's just left, but I created an OER for just for an assessment course I'm taking at the University of Edinburgh, and he wanted to use it and said, how long did this take you? It was on degrowth and post-digital design. And honestly, what took me the longest was choosing images that were compatible with everything else I was trying to do within the license. It's because you're just trying to align, as Catherine taught me, is just double and triple check your work. It's a bit like maths, I guess. And maybe never, yeah, always maybe second guessing yourself a little bit. That it's easy to get things wrong. But no, thank you for the agenda item, Mags. What I might just do is just stop streaming.
When do you guys
seconds.
normally meet?